The quality of our decisions determines the quality of our life. They also determine the quality of our work. But so many of us, far too often, fall victim to two pitfalls that plague our work, our time, our money, and our energy. I'm talking about jumping to conclusions.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. This is the greatest thrill of my life. I'm king of the world. Woohoo! Woohoo!
And analysis paralysis. In this episode, I'm going to be talking through a method from my 2020 book, Time Reach, on how you can beat both analysis paralysis and jumping to conclusions to help you spend less time, less money on the things that don't work and more time on the things that do. But first, if you like this show, take a moment to like, share, or subscribe and leave a comment below. I'd love to know about a time when you jumped to conclusions and wasted a lot of time and money pursuing something that didn't work. And I'll go first. In fact, I've made hundreds of errors in the past when I've jumped to conclusions with big ideas that I thought would work. In fact, my first entrepreneurial pursuit was a company called Hotdesk, essentially an Airbnb for office space. And I worked on that for about 2 years and ultimately got nowhere. If I had learned earlier how to test my assumptions before pursuing that idea, I might have invested that time more wisely. Jumping to conclusions. We do it all of the time. In the working world, it shows up with spending a year or two pursuing something for which there is perhaps no market appetite for. Analysis paralysis. On the other side of the coin, we spend countless days, weeks, months in boardrooms, in meeting rooms, on Zoom, discussing, planning, pontificating, risk managing, cost-benefit analyzing, at the expense of actually doing anything at all. In fact, we might spend more time on people's wages simply talking and planning about doing something than we will executing on said thing. Now, usually as human beings, we fall victim to these two pitfalls because we're navigating the world without enough data. If we want to make great decisions, we need to combine the professional judgment of a few domain experts with valuable, reliable data. If we don't have data, it's kind of like going through life without the don't dive here, shallow water sign, or the proceed with caution sign. And so we either jump to conclusions or end up in analysis paralysis almost forever. Fortunately, there's an easy way to get that data so we can navigate the world with more certainty and more confidence. As Castaneda said, Mike Tyson's trainer, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And so we can make that plan duck and weave with those punches by getting out of the building. So imagine it's 2008 and we're the founders of Uber over in Silicon Valley. We've got this idea for a new app that's going to help people get around, but we're not sure it's actually going to work. We're not sure people will actually use it. So what do we do about that? Well, we can jump to conclusions, build the app, onboard hundreds of drivers, spend a ton of money on marketing, and it might fail. Or we can talk about doing something for the next 24 months and not do anything at all. Of course, there's a third thing we could do. Get out of the building and get that data so we can navigate the world with more confidence. So how do we do that? Step one, we need to define our assumptions. What are the assumptions that underpin whether or not the idea for Uber will be successful or not? The assumptions that underpin Uber are many, but three key ones might be people will get into a private car with a stranger, people will use their smartphone to book a car, and people are not satisfied with taxis. Now we need to rate how impactful these assumptions are to the business model. For example, if this assumption is false, does the whole business model fall over? If so, that's a very impactful assumption. So based on that, people getting into a private car with a stranger, people using a smartphone to book a car, they are make or break, so we're going to rate them 10 for impact. People not being satisfied with taxis, I mean, that's somewhat impactful to our business model, but we think that if we do a good job, we'll be able to unlock more demand for our product, people that perhaps don't use taxis normally. Then we need to determine how certain are we that these assumptions are true or false. Now, with people getting into a private car with a stranger, we're not sure that they'll do that. So we're going to rate that a 3 out of 10. With people using their smartphone to book a car, we know that's actually already happening through taxis and other methods of transportation. So we're going to call that an 8. We're quite certain about that one. And then finally, people not being satisfied with taxis. We know that from our own experience, as well as from numerous reports that are available online. So we're also going to call that an 8. Then finally, all we need to do is divide impact by certainty to get the score. The higher the score, the more important that assumption is to our business model, and that's the thing we should get out of the building and test. In this case, people getting into a private car with a stranger, 10 divided by 3 is a score of 3.33. That is the number one assumption we need to be testing. So how do we go about testing then? Well, what you want to do is come up with a list of, say, prototypes that you can use to test whether that assumption is true or false. In this case, we've got 3 that we've listed: asking people whether they jump into a private car at a taxi rank, running ads, and running online surveys. Now, we want to prioritize these different prototypes based on 1, the quality of the learning, and 2, how much effort it's going to take. So in the case of turning up to a busy taxi rank, say on a Saturday night, and asking people if they'd pay $20 to take a ride home in a private car, the learning there is actually quite high because it is directly testing our assumption. So we're going to give that 8 out of 10. And then the effort of doing so is actually quite small. All we need to do is turn up. We don't even need a car. We can just say that, hey, once they agree to do so, we know that assumption is tested, is validated, and we can say, sorry, there is no such car, but thanks for your cooperation. Here's a Mars bar for your efforts. So when you look at the learning divided by effort, 8 divided by 2 in that case, the score is 4. It's higher than the other prototypes. So that's the test we're going to run to determine whether or not our assumption is true or false. And once we run this test 5, 10 different times, perhaps in different locations, that'll give us a lot more confidence as to whether or not we should move forward with this idea or not. And of course, you can apply this to all sorts of decisions in your life. It doesn't have to be a business idea. It could be, say, a YouTube channel that you want to build. It could be a relationship that you're going to pursue. Perhaps you've got a few people you're thinking of dating. Maybe go on 1 or 2 dates with each of them. I don't know, but to me that sounds like a better way to make that decision than basing it on perhaps someone's Instagram profile alone. So by taking this path of action, we can allay ourselves of wasting too much time in analysis paralysis and wasting too much time and money jumping to conclusions, and ultimately spend more time on things that actually create value, things that leave us fulfilled, and things that help us get much closer to our goals much faster. Now, if you enjoyed these insights, there's a whole bunch more in my book, Time Rich. You can actually download the first chapter for free over at timerichbook.com. Until next time, Workflow is out.